Are you ready?
You're listening to Live from the Club with David James on 89.5 FM in Toronto. listening to Live from the Club with David James on 89.5 FM in Toronto.
Curated by the people, for the people. CIUT 89.5 FM is the sound of your city.
I told you I was okay, but that was not true. 'Cause I told you one day I will come back for you. In the kingdom of my hands, the maxim is clear.
Listening to Live from the Club with David James on 89.5 FM in Toronto.
to myself, but I'm not broken. Waiting for the day to bring me light.
If heaven thinks that everything is everything, the only thing I ever dreamed is you and me. 'Cause I break down and take you down, and I love it every step of the way.
As a singer grows older, his conception goes a little deeper because he lives life and he understands what he's trying to say a little more. If a singer tries to find out what's happening in life, it gives him a better insight on telling the story of the song he's trying to sing.
Watching from a distant constellation, eyes that can see the world in changing hues, vision still unfolding, sweet and matching. Time reveals that love's the only truth. If heaven thinks that everything is everything, the only thing I ever dreamed is you and me. 'Cause I break down and take you down, and I love it every step of the way.
You're listening to Moving in the Right Direction with David James on 89.5 FM in Toronto.
You're listening to Live from the Club with David James on 89.5 FM in Toronto.
People make the world go round, rearranged and reconstructed by KDJ.
Slow as a satellite, landing for heat. The flow of a memory of you at my knees. Your tongue in my fire's eye, your fingers move me. I lay all my fear aside, it's painful and sweet. When I dream of you, I lose all my need to return. I'm trapped in a sea of you. Hey, yeah. When I dream of you, I lose all my need to return. I'm trapped in a sea of you. My in your kiss is all that really matters now. We good for me in this pool of quicksand. Yeah.
something. Feels so good, the real thing. We
You're listening to Moving in the Right Direction with David James on 89.5 FM in Toronto. You're listening to Moving in the Right Direction with David James on 89.5 FM in Toronto.
Welcome to hour number 2 for Moving in the Right Direction Radio. As you can tell by my raspy voice, a little under the weather this week. Won't be doing a whole lot of talking. I hope you enjoyed the first hour of the program with a very special feature live from the club. A recorded set by yours truly, David James, at Wendell's 60th birthday. What a bash that was. Hope you enjoyed that. We're kicking things off with music from Boo Willams. We'll be chatting with Raul Vargas, who's pulling together a benefit event tonight, Thursday night, if you're listening live and direct on CIUT 89.5 at the Wiggle Room hosting benefit for Boo Willams. Raul Vargas will be our guest in a few minutes. He'll be chatting about why we're doing this. Boo has come under some health-related issues over the last few months, and Boo is certainly one of the originators of Chicago house music in some ways, definitely an innovator of Chicago house music, and we'll be dropping some tracks from him in celebration of that event. All money, 100% of the proceeds go to his recovery. He's from the United States. Of course, their healthcare system just isn't the greatest. So, if you're uninsured, or even if you do have insurance, there's bills that you have to pay. So we are certainly wishing our well to Boo Willams. We'll be celebrating tonight at the Wiggle Room beginning at 9 p.m. featuring guest DJs Kenny Glasgow, LeBaron James, Ron John, Raul Vargas, and so many more. We'll be chatting to him in a few minutes, and he'll give us the whole rundown. Also coming up tonight, 7 p.m. at Hush Hush, 423 College Street, downtown Toronto, College and Bathurst. We have Jazzy from Ireland, my home. She'll be in town tonight as part of a Universal Music Party beginning at 7 p.m. Also on the bill, A Freak Like Me, and many more. 7 p.m. start at 423 College Street. Jazzy in the house, and we're going to be playing some music from Jazzy in celebration of that. Plus, we have our special guest DJ coming up in the next hour. He's recording on All Day I Dream of our brand new release, and we'll be hearing a very special guest mix from Israeli Khen, DJ Khen in the house. Got to hear him play at a party a few years ago at the church on Berkeley, and certainly he's done some pretty big things since then, really doing the international circuit with a new release in All Day I Dream, and we'll be hearing a whole guest mix from him coming up. All that and so much more as we move in the right direction. CIUT 89.5 FM in Toronto. Welcome back to Moving in the Right Direction Radio. I still have a little bit of my voice left. We're here with Raul Vargas, and we're going to be talking about a very special event coming up tonight, this Thursday, down at the Wiggle Room. I can now say probably the legendary Wiggle Room. They've been putting on some amazing events, in particular this one in support of Boo Willams. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Tell us about what's been happening with Boo Willams, Chicago legend, originator in a lot of ways of unique sound, but he's been having some struggles lately, I understand.
Yeah, I guess probably about a month and a half ago, he was admitted to hospital. He'd made a post online, and I sort of wanted to check in, and I wasn't really able to get a hold of him. So just sort of waited it out a little bit, was able to get a hold of him, and he's going through some kidney and lung issues. Just over time, long-term health things that have just kind of sort of caught up with him, it seems. And so he's in the hospital right now, and being in the States in the US is not always easy. He is in Chicago, so getting health coverage and all that isn't as accessible as it is to us up here.
Yeah, for sure. How long have you actually known him? Because you have a bit of a relationship, right?
Yeah, we've known each other probably since around 2001. I had picked him up for actually one of the Ohm festivals years ago, and we got to spend some time together in Toronto. And we just got to know each other through there. Every time he came up, I'd go see him play, and he was always super friendly, super nice, and invited me down to Chicago once, and so I went down there and visited him in Glen Underground at the time.
Yeah, awesome. And we were just talking off air before the interview that he and also Glen Underground, but they've really created their own sound that's completely unique and different from what everybody else is doing. And they've stuck to that, and it's been a huge success for them. Talk about that.
Yeah, through Strictly Jazz Unit, it's like you said, it's very unique, something that they've been working on. It's always been sort of like their distinct sound. I mean, every time I hear a Boo Willams track, it's always so discernible. I can always tell that it's him, usually within the first couple bars. And same with Glen, I mean, they always go so deep, and then when they play out their DJ skills, really super eclectic, even touching all the different realms of house, but just, really taking you on a journey.
Yeah, true underground, true originators. You're putting together an event tonight at the Wiggle Room featuring some heavy hitters in Toronto in kind of, I guess a way to sort of raise some money for Boo Willams. And of course, if you don't understand the American healthcare system, much different than Canada's, of course, a lot of things have to come out of pocket. People have to pay monthly insurance in some cases. And if you don't have the coverage, or even if you have coverage, it may not necessarily be enough to have these life-saving procedures done. And so money rules the day in the United States, and screw that 51st state kind of thing going on there. Like, why? Like, maybe they should become a province, right? But but seriously, so this is not just a health issue, but it can be a financial issue for people in the United States, and I think we take that for granted in Canada. So talk about the event tonight and what was, obviously Boo's health was the motivation, but talk about some of the DJs coming out and supporting.
Yeah, we have Kenny Glasgow was a friend of Boo's for a long time. And they've always been connected. I mean, Kenny's always had a lot of respect and love for Boo. And the LeBaron James guys, I mean, they're just, great-hearted guys that are always up for, being able to help out with a cause with friends and stuff, and doing some great disco house in Toronto, kind of putting us on the map in that way. and then Ron John came up through. Originally, I wanted to have Gene King. Him and I were talking about doing this event, and sort of didn't work out just with timing and stuff. So he suggested that we bring in Ron John, which is great suggestion. Super happy to have him, and Mike Lambert, who's been around for years, who was part of the Home Circle way back then too. So just really nice group of people. I mean, super proud, super happy to have this group being able to help us out with it.
And that proceeds will be going to sort of the treatment and care, or contributing to the care and treatment for Boo.
Yeah, 100% of the proceeds is going to him. None of the DJs are taking any cut the door or anything at this point. They're all volunteering everything. So really sweet of them to give their time and give their talents to this. And so, 100% of the proceeds will be going to him. Right now, Boo is in recovery stage. I spoke with him briefly. He's sort of doesn't have the energy to be able to be around all the time, but he's excited and just keeps talking about getting back to normal. So I know he's looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, we're definitely wishing and knowing that will happen, very soon. Once again, the Wiggle Room tonight. If you're looking for something to do, what time do doors open?
Doors open at 9. It'll be myself and Mike Lambert starting off the night, doing a little back-to-back action. It's $20 at the door. Like I said, all the proceeds go for Boo's hospital bill and recovery.
Amazing. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Just bend your knees and use your arms. Move them above your head. Just never keep them down to your side. Just keep them moving. Let's get back to the party. Bend your knees and do a little
Yes, most definitely, you're rocking tight to Moving in the Right Direction Radio with David James and about 50% of his voice. Hope you're enjoying that mini mix featuring some of the DJs and producers who will be spinning tonight down at the Wiggle Room, 772 Dundas Street West. Tonight, Thursday night, if you're listening live and direct on a Thursday morning right here on 89.5. Big respect and shout going to Raul Vargas for speaking with us about why we're doing this. We're doing it because Boo Willams has some medical issues that have arisen over the last few months. He's from Chicago and he's one of the innovators of really deep house, tech house, fusion, Chicago house music, and certainly a fan favorite right here in Toronto and around the world. And over the last 20 minutes or so, we heard music from Boo Willams. We heard Venus, Running Crazy, the two latest releases from him. Something going back about a decade from Boo Willams. We also heard Mortal Trance. A couple of things from LeBaron James, Let's Get Back to the Party, and Sugar and Spice. In the background right now, music from Kenny Glasgow, Position Fatale. Both Kenny Glasgow and LeBaron James will be performing tonight, and this is a celebration of Boo Willams. It's a fundraiser to cover some of his medical expenses. Be there tonight, 9 p.m. down at the Wiggle Room. Enough said about that. Can't say enough about it. Be there, get there. Support the house music community rallying around one of the comrades down in Chicago that need our support. Coming up next, we still have a very special guest DJ from All Day I Dream. He's now released a couple tracks on that label. He goes by the name of Khen, and he's been really expanding his scope over the last few years in terms of the international scene. He'll be here with a special guest DJ mix. Plus, we have music from Jazzy coming up right about now. Jazzy's in town, first Canadian, well, maybe not Canadian, but certainly first Toronto appearance as part of a Universal music event happening tonight at Hush Hush, 423 College Street, 7 p.m. Doors open. Jazzy, A Freak Like Me, all a celebration of Night Vision and Universal Music. Do check it out.
Everything around is changing. We gonna shine, light up until morning, and then we'll do it all over again. Bringing only no bad vibes, wanna have a good time. If you won't go and don't come out. Here's this morning, the party ain't done, so we still gonna have some fun now. Feels so right and it feels so high, I don't wanna come down. I still don't wanna come down, don't wanna come down. Switch.
Seven time rise, seven time we fall. Double play pop us and mash up the dance hall. Crowd them on the receiving end, them a ball. Oh, them a ball for bass, my name, them a call. To in place with music, they want and for all. The people them a beg me super DJ for more. Because they love the way we play the hardcore. Them a jump and shout like a goal just score. Watch out, them bubble up on the dance floor. Divide them back and the music wicked. The company nice up the life where you live. Jump and shout and tell them be positive. Live the life you love the life you live.
Never know the rule, them never they go to basement jack school. But we's willing to teach them for your shilling. Make sure he's not the next victim in a killing. Cause we have the knowledge, we got good college A plus in our history and home economics and we love music. Now when we bust up the garage, the guy one test where him dead. road to rename them a call. Out them up in this space, but jacks after all. When we check it out, them brain it small. 7 time rise, 7 time will fall. Don't play that bus up a shop, they dance hard. Crowd them on the receiving end, them a ball. Who them a ball from basement, name them a call. Through the place with music for one and for all. The people them a bring me super DJ for more. Because another way we play the hardcore. Them a jump and shout like a goal just score. Watch out, them bubbling on the dance floor. The vibes them hot and the music wicked. We come for nice up the life we a live. Jump and shout until them be positive. Live the life you love the life you live. So think about mama, them a big fugitive. And if it pop off, they go and nobody if you live. If them a bad man, then nobody should. They all know they not them yard with them Bible a beg. But some a fool, never know the rule. Them never they go to basement chat school. But we's willing to teach them we actually make sure it's not the next victim in a killing. But some a fool, never know the rule. Them never they go to basement chat school. But we's willing to teach them we actually make sure it's not the next victim in a killing. Now we have the knowledge we call good college A plus in our history and all economics and we love music. Now when we bust up the garage, we got one test we're in there. At school, but we's willing to teach them we actually make sure it's not the next victim in a killing. Cause we have the knowledge we call good college A plus in our history and all economics and we love music. Now when we bust up the garage, we got one test we're in there.
From Chapter Verse, a track called Jump Around, brand new music. Coming up next, that's Province, our special guest DJ Khen. Before we get to that, we got a couple tracks to play from his All Day I Dream release just coming out last week. This is Khen, a track called My Pure Soul. We're going to place a station ID, a couple ads, come back on the other side. DJ Khen will be in the mix. This is David James with his raspy voice on a Thursday morning. I hope you're enjoying the program. We're certainly moving in the right direction radio. Once again, closing out hour number 2 with music from Khen, a track called My Pure Soul from All Day I Dream.
You're listening to Moving in the Right Direction with David James on 89.5 FM in Toronto.
What's up? What's up? It's hour number 3 of Moving in the Right Direction Radio, and I'm barely standing. Got this vicious cold, but I'm still here with you, playing the vibrations on a Thursday morning. Can't stop that. We won't stop, that's for sure. Coming up next, we got music from Demeanours and Lyons-Rising, a track called Pain Remixed. We premiered this one a few weeks ago, bringing it back for round number 2. And we also got music from Toronto rising star Farouki with a track called People from Black Flag Recordings. Don't forget, still on the platter, still on the menu this morning, our special guest DJ Mixer DJ Khen from All Day I Dream. He has a new EP out. We dropped a track just before the break. And also, I gotta mention this one more time. 2 parties happening tonight. Number 1, 7 p.m. at Hush Hush, 423 College Street, College in Bathurst. In the main floor, Nest on top, and the old El Convento Rico. No, actually across the street from El Convento Rico. But there was this Latin club back in the day on College in Bathurst, near Sneaky D's. You get the picture. Tonight, Hush Hush is the place to be at 7 p.m. for Night Vision, Universal Music, free party with RSVP, and you can check out the Move in the Right Direction Facebook page, and that RSVP link is posted just for you. Get there, it's going to be amazing. Jazzy, Toronto premiere of Jazzy in the house. And she has been doing sensational things over the last couple of years. She's out of Ireland, and a bit of a belated St. Patrick's Day party happening alongside Afrique Like Me and a few other notables. Once again tonight, as we mentioned a little earlier, Boo Willams fundraising event. Boo Willams is suffering with some health issues. He's from Chicago. He's one of the innovators of house music. Continues to be relevant today. He is going through some health issues. And of course, as you know, the American healthcare system isn't the greatest. And so even if you have insurance, it may not be enough to cover for the kind of things that you may need. And in particular with Boo Willams tonight, that Toronto house music community will be raising funds for him. That party starts at 9 p.m. and features LeBaron James, Kenny Glasgow, Raul Vargas, and so many more down at the Wiggle Room, 772 Dundas Street West. And once again, doors open at 9. I believe it's $20. The link for that event is also posted on the Moving in the Right Direction Facebook page. Once again, let's get into the music. Demeanours, Lyons-Rising, followed by Farouki, and then we got some new music from Ellen Alien's B-Pitch label out of Berlin. We'll drop some of that hard techno stuff, a few tracks off that, and those are world radio premieres, by the way. And then we'll drop the DJ Khen mix to close out the show. We're moving in the right direction. CIUT 89.5. Let's do it. Yes, most definitely. We are definitely slamming the techno this morning. We start off the 9 o'clock hour with music from Dope Demeanours and Joe Lyons-Rising, a track called Pain Remixed. Farouki from Toronto with People. Vince Watson, Legendary, track called Gliding. A couple of things off a brand new Beat Pitch compilation to be released in April. We have an advanced copy several weeks before its release. You're hearing it here first in the background right now. Gabby Diaz, a track called Bloody Dance. Before that, Sarah Sommers with Industrial Espionage. Coming up next, as promised, the much anticipated guest DJ this week, DJ Khen. And he is from All Day Dreaming. He has a new EP out called My Pure. We heard My Pure Soul just before 9 o'clock in the morning. And he'll be dropping a mix for us this morning. Khen made his international breakthrough in 2016 when he released his debut album, One Day of Independence, on Guy J's Lost and Found imprint. Since then, he's teamed up with Guy Torres for a collaborative project on John Digweed's Bedrock label. Dropped 2 EPs and remixed for Durante on Ajuna Deep, and released a collaboration with Roy Rosensfield on Sebastian Ledger's Lost Miracle. One of Israel's most exciting melodic talents, Khen continues to draw attention like the icons. The icons respect this guy like Lee Burridge and me. Kind of music, John Digweed and Adam 10. This morning, we present to you DJ Khen. He'll take us to 10 o'clock in the morning. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. I hope you enjoy this very special guest mix. And I'm definitely going to go and take care of myself. My voice is barely functioning at this point. Thanks for indulging me and thanks for bearing with me this morning. Coming up at 10 o'clock, Democracy Now! DJ Khen in the mix, taking us there.
listening to Moving in the Right Direction with David James on 89.5 FM in Toronto.